It's been 6 years, almost to the day, that my wife left me in early September of 2019. It was Valentine's Day 2016, the last time we had sex. And that was the first time we'd had sex in well over a year. So that takes you back to 2015. And before that, the sex was intermittent, maybe 3 or 4 times a year at best, for years. Now, we were cordial to each other. We lived in the same house. We were good roommates. We were really good roommates. But our marriage had been over for a very, very long time. And yet it persisted. And we had every excuse in the book for it to continue. And I think that's what happens to guys, is that we use every excuse to stay in this ridiculously painful situation that is chronically destroying our lives, day after day after day. I think on some level we men suffer, and we expect to suffer. And so when we do suffer, we're not really surprised by it. And on some level we embrace it. I don't know, maybe we got some kind of a subliminal under consciousness or unconscious martyr complex. I have no idea, but we definitely do it. And I see it over and over and over again. And even when I've confronted guys, specifically in terrible situations, just like what I had experienced myself, like, you need to get out, like you need to leave. There is no value in you continuing in this relationship. This isn't good for you, it's not good for her, it's not good for your kids, it's not good for anybody. Why don't you just leave? Whew. This is Life 2.0. Let's talk about it. I think it's fear avoidance. I like to think of it a little bit like tax avoidance. You know, when you have an investment that pays you dividends, unless you realize those dividends, like if they're reinvested, then you don't get taxed on them. But in marriage, you're thinking, well, if I don't cash in all this negative energy and get a divorce, or I don't confront this issue here and now, then it just sort of gets reinvested in the marriage. I'm putting it off for another day. I'm not going to be taxed on this now. I don't have to pay the price for this relationship right this minute. So it's avoiding the pain of the inevitable. And we think that by pushing it off, by making it tomorrow's problem and not dealing with it in the here and now, that we are in some way improving our circumstances. We're making this a better situation. Nothing could be further from the truth. At the end of the day, just like you and me and the dogs and everybody else here on planet Earth, we have an expiration date. And every minute you spend in a marriage that has failed is a minute that you're wasting. You are volunteering to suffer more than necessary. Think about that for a minute. You are raising your hand and saying, yes, sir, I'll have another. And they just keep hitting you, you know, over and over and over and over again. And you go back willingly because dealing with the little bit of pain that you're experiencing day after day after day is easier than dealing with the imaginary pain that you have in your mind of what might happen if you get a divorce. And it is truly imaginary pain. When I was a kid, I hated going to the dentist. Oh my God, I just hated it. First of all, my dad was in the Navy, an enlisted man in the Navy. So we went to a dental theater, if you will, where they had all these dentists lined up, these chairs in rows. Just only the military could do this, you know? So you got like 10 dentists down one side and 10 dentists down the other side. And these guys, I think they're all really in dentist school, you know? And then we are all the kids with their moms, sitting in this, I don't know, you call it a waiting area, but it was just sort of like a bullpit. And they're just calling names. And so I get called up And this dentist, he's all thumbs, you know, he's not sensitive about pain. He hurts me over and over and over again. And finally I bit the motherfucker. He refused to do business with me anymore. I had to get another dentist. Thankfully, this was a better dentist. The trauma from that experience has carried into adulthood, you know, and I put off going to the dentist much more than I should. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. The pain of suffering with the thought, I wonder if this is a problem, feels easier than the pain of going to the dentist to find out what's really going on. Do you know what I mean? Because the longer I put this off, the worse it's going to get. You know, like cavities, they don't heal by themselves. You know, you're just going to have a root canal. You're going to have a cap. You know, it's going to cost you, instead of a few $100s for a cavity, it's going to cost you a few $1,000s for a cap and all that stuff and a root canal. So that's what divorce is like. It's like putting off going to the dentist. If you take the pain now, if you deal with it in the here and now, the pain's going to be much, much easier to deal with than if you put it off. It doesn't get better the longer you wait. In fact, if anything, it gets worse because the resentments build, the anger builds. And when a divorce finally does come around, the likelihood that it's going to be a terrible, vindictive, hellish experience goes sky high because now you guys are just without any compassion for one another at all. You just freaking hate her and she hates you. So don't let it fester. Don't let this wound just go on without treatment. Deal with it head on. I know you guys think that, well, I don't want to take the financial hit. That's the thing. It's going to cost me too much money. Well, do you think it's going to cost you less in the future? Really? Here's the thing about divorce. In most states, the longer you stay, the more expensive it gets. Usually around 10 years is where the threshold is, but it may be different in your state. When you get past that 10-year mark, you're in for life. You know, you are in for life. And your earnings generally go up, you know? So it's not like she's gonna get a smaller piece at some point in the future. So the sooner you make this deal, you get out of this contract, the better it's gonna be for you. I don't know if any of you guys follow NFL football, but there was a lot of controversy over a trade that happened recently. The Dallas Cowboys, who are an over-bloated team that everyone thinks is great, and they haven't won anything in like 30 or 40 years, but their owner is very extravagant, and he's always stirring things up in the press. Anyway, they had this player, Micah Parsons, who was this top-notch defensive player, top 4 or 5 guys in the league. And his contract was coming up for renewal. And he did not do a good job of negotiating, you know, Jerry Jones did not do a good job of negotiating with Micah Parsons. So at the end of the day, he had to trade him. And the reason he had to trade him is because he had screwed up the negotiations so badly that the market for his position, for a guy of his skill, had increased dramatically over the time that he delayed dealing with the issue. So if he had dealt with the issue 6 months ago, he could have gotten away with paying Micah Parsons between $35 and $40 million a year. But by the time he kind of got around to addressing the issue, well, the market for that position was approaching $50 million a year. So that's a huge, huge difference. Now, you can liken the same idea to your marriage. The sooner you strike a deal, the cheaper it's going to be. The longer you drag it out, the more money it's going to cost you. You're not going to get a better deal 5 years from now or 10 years from now. In fact, all you're going to do is you're going to waste a lot of time, valuable time, and you're going to spend a lot more money, and the pain is going to be a lot worse because now you've got 5 or 10 more years of pain to deal with, and you've got the additional amount that you're going to have to pay her because she's still going to get 50%. Now, if you're making, let's just use some round numbers, and you're, say, 45 years old, and you're making $100,000 a year at 45, you wait 10 years at 55. These are your prime earning years. You're going to see your wages go up by 50, 60, 70, maybe even 100% over that 10 years. So would you rather pay her half of $100,000 or half of $200,000? Now, I know you guys aren't mathematicians, so I'm going to let you work on it for a minute or two, but I think paying her half of 100 is better than paying her half of 200. So Do it now. Don't wait any longer. It's not going to get easier. It's not going to get better. You're not going to heal this thing. It's broken. Let it go. I've noticed as guys get older that we cling to our ideas of the past. We believe that the past was always better. We had this nostalgia filter that we place on everything. It makes everything look just a little bit smoother, just a little bit nicer, just a little bit more beautiful. And so we cling to the idea of who she was at some point in the past when we met her. She was that girl that was just a little out of reach. She was that girl that you were hoping to get her attention. She was that girl that when you landed her, you knew, oh, this is the one. This is the one. And you were so certain of it. You believed it 100%. And so coming to terms with the errors of judgment and the lack of experience and the lack of understanding about relationships and all of the things that led to this marriage failing need to be worked through. It's my profound belief that life is about learning. And although we do learn some from our successes, our failures are our best teachers by far, by far. You must learn this lesson. You're either going to learn it now and you're going to take the pain that comes with it and you're going to work through these issues. It's going to be hard. There's no question about it. There's going to be a recovery process. There's a lot happening in this moment when you decide to leave her, when you tell her that this marriage is over. But it will begin the process of healing. It will begin the process of unraveling this mess. It'll begin the process of you finding out who you are again and really moving on to your own life 2.0, where you can take the wisdom that you gleaned from this experience and apply it to your life and perhaps to future relationships and have a better understanding of what you really, really want for yourself. When a relationship is dead, when you're not sleeping together, when you're living in separate bedrooms, when you're not having sex, when there is just perfunctory logistical communication, you're no longer having deep emotional, thought-provoking, soul-bearing conversations. When the most affection you get is that peck, coming and going, and the perfunctory "I love you" at the end of phone calls, it's over. It's over. And she's not letting it go because she's still getting something out of it. You're still paying half the rent or half the mortgage. You're paying your share. You're doing your part. She needs you as a man around the house. There's also that whole social facade that we put on. So, having, couples over for dinner and you guys all pretend to be happy. I remember the realtor who sold our house. She thought that Tracy, my wife, and I were just the happiest couple that she had ever seen. We had worked it out. We had gotten the act down so well. Like, we held hands. We spoke nicely about one another. We kissed each other. We just had that whole act down so well. And this woman, who we spent a lot of time with during that era, that time, she was fooled completely by it. And she was struggling in her own marriage. I see them now. They live nearby, and I see them on the trails from time to time. And they're still together. But I remember she talked about her relationship with her husband at that time being strained for one reason or another. But most guys do the same thing. Most couples do the same thing. They're putting on that attractive, outward-facing facade of what their relationship is, because neither one of them want to feel like they're failures. They don't want to seem like they're the dysfunctional couple in the neighborhood, but they are. And there's a lot of dysfunctional couples in the neighborhood who are doing exactly the same thing that you're doing. Pretending for your kids, same thing. Except what you're doing here is so much more profound, because what you're really doing is you are teaching your children what a dysfunctional relationship looks like. But they believe you're happy because you're acting happy. So now they are absorbing this behavior and they're seeing it as something that they should model in their own lives. So what you are doing is you are inevitably setting them up for the same kind of failure or worse than what you're experiencing right now. So if you love your children, if you truly love them, getting the fuck out of this relationship is the best thing you can do for them, because the longer you stay, the more you're modeling this crazy behavior, the more more likely it is that they're going to have the same kind of pain and anguish in their lives. And why would you want to put your own kids through this kind of torture? Really, really. If you're a man, you've got to look yourself in the mirror and you've got to come to terms with where you are in your life, the reality of what's going on, and what's in the best interest of everyone involved. You've got to be able to take the bullet on this. And that means you've got to make the decision to call the marriage off, to end it. Do it as kindly and as gently as you can. Try to maintain relationships to the best of your ability. Try to maintain a healthy relationship with your children. Do it at a time when things are not at their worst. Just say, honey, we haven't been sleeping together for a long time. Our intimacy has dried up. It's very clear that this is not the marriage either you or I had in mind when we got together. I don't see any reason why we should continue playing this game. Let's split everything up 50-50 and let's go our separate ways. You know, if there's kids, we'll do 50% custody. In most cases, most judges, most family courts will buy that. If you can have an agreement going in and you have that kind of a split, you're good to go. But continuing in this charade of a relationship and pretending that nothing is wrong is not benefiting anyone. You, her, the kids, her family, your family, the neighbors, the dogs, nobody benefits from this. When I was in college, I had a political science professor who told me that the definition of power was the person who sets the agenda. So you're not deciding for other people. You're just making the decision about what will be decided upon. And that's what initiating the divorce does for you, is it puts you in a position of power where you have an opportunity to set the agenda for what's going to happen. And you do it with your tone, you do it with your leadership, you do it with your peaceful approach. If you're going to make this decision to ask for a divorce, or to tell her you're getting a divorce, you're not asking anything, you're telling her you're getting a divorce, you need to do it in the way that you would talk to that girl that you met in the beginning of this relationship, to that girl that you fell in love with. Because you need to have compassion, and you need to understand that even though she might have been a terrible human being for some period of time and treated you like shit, and you may have tons of valid reasons to hate her, to be resentful of her, to be angry at her, there is no value in digging all that crap up from the past and bringing it to the table at this moment. In fact, it is the worst possible time. I would argue, actually, that there is no reason to ever talk about any of that shit again. This is stuff you're gonna have to work through your head. You know, you were part of this relationship. You're part of this failure. You're part of it. Own it. Just own it. You're responsible. So that means you're gonna have to understand that you need to work through your role in this situation. You've got years to do that after the fact. You do not need to do this between now and the time that the judge puts down the gavel and says, your marriage is over, you're divorced, congratulations. You do not need to go through that airing of dirty laundry, the digging through the through the cesspool of your marriage and seeing if there's any golden nuggets that you can dig up and throw at her, because she's going to be doing the same thing. And then it just gets ugly, you know? It just gets ugly. So, my advice to you, if you're in a dead marriage, take a leadership role. Do it in a kind, thoughtful way. You don't need to be a resentful asshole. You don't need to make this into a big thing. It's going to be big enough as it is. She's going to be mad. She's going to scream. She's going to cry. She's going to throw an emotional tantrum. This might go on for a week or two, but she will eventually come around to the recognition that you were right, that the marriage is over, that there's no reason to go on, that she will start seeing a vision of her own future without you. She may be angry, but she will get over it. And when she does, she will move on with her life. Meanwhile, You spend all of your spare time thinking about how your life is going to start looking once this is over. Where are you going to live? How are you going to be separated? Because I know in most states, if you've got kids, you've got to be separated. Since you've been living separately, you're in the basement, she's upstairs, that might already qualify. A lot of states still accept that in-house separation because the cost of living is so high. But if you haven't been sleeping in the same bed, you haven't had sex for a long time, you guys are willing to sign an affidavit, you might have already passed the whole separation area, you know? So get that separation agreement in place, do what you have to do, start making your plans, and do your best to keep this as cordial and low-key as you can. The less emotion you inject into this, the less emotion she's going to reflect back to you in it. Now, she's going to still give you a ton of energy. It's not going to be pretty, but there's no reason for you to make it worse. All right, you guys, that's all I got for you today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please like and subscribe. If you know somebody who's in a terrible marriage and they are, you know, not taking action for their own benefit, you know, they're sitting on that toilet and nothing's coming out. You know, they either need to shit or get off the pot. They need to just get off the pot at this point. You know what I mean? It's time for this marriage to be over. So give them this video. Hopefully it'll be meaningful. Hopefully it'll inspire them. It'll be that little nudge they need to save their own lives. All right, you guys. Until next time, stay healthy, and if you can, stay single.